Hello and welcome back to Silicon Dreams. Now then, let's go and take a quick nap, and then we'll have to actually do a good job with the next task. Let's see who it is who gets screwed, because now we've hit the dangerous level in our evaluation. Reynold Atter, I've heard that name. Professor Atter is a professor of sociological ethics at the University of Silicon Valley and chairman of the Future Ethics Committee. According to our records, he was briefly employed as a consultant for Kronos in the 2030s, but further details have since been lost. Professor Atter has agreed to assist Kronos in the apprehension of an android he bought several years ago, but which has since gone rogue. Kronos' social monitoring unit has flagged the android in question, RO334, as a serious threat. This unit has hacked into several Kronos servers, the most extreme example of android culpable digital terrorism on record. You yourself witnessed one such hack, Unit SM-115. RO334 was sold to Professor Atter in 2063, but is no longer in his possession. Professor Atter has agreed to share what he knows about this deviant. As the former owner, Atter may be able to provide some insights into RO's current actions, accomplices, and location. Atter no longer owns RO334, and the records do not show a transfer of ownership. I see. Professor Atter, thank you for agreeing to help us locate RO334.
To be frank, I've come to plead his case more than to betray him. I had hoped that he would make a better life for himself, it's true. I never expected he'd get into this much trouble. But I can't believe he'd do anything cruel. Why are you searching for him? What has he done?
He hacked into a secure Kronos network. We still don't know how much damage was caused.
Oh dear, no, that won't do at all. I taught him from the very start that there are proper and improper ways to make your opinions heard. I'm terribly sorry that he chose the wrong path, but I don't believe that makes him irredeemable.
Ethics Professor, you are the chairman of the Future Ethics Committee. What is the purpose of this committee?
I'm always happy to discuss it. And the FEC is a collective of like-minded philosophers, innovators, and futurists. We believe that what are currently referred to as human rights are in fact the rights of all intelligent beings. Our goal is to determine precisely what intelligent means and to see the protection of these rights extended. Progress has been painfully slow, but anything worth doing deserves to be done properly. These things take time, you see.
Well, sounds like a very noble cause.
Oh, thank you. Our role is small, but we hope we can help shift the scales a little.
Does the FEC include any Android members?
Android members? Not as far as I know. Some of our members bring their androids with them to meetings. But if there are Android members, they are well hidden, and I have no wish to pry.
Tell me about sociological ethics.
I could fill a book. In fact, I've already filled several, but I'll give you the short version. It's the study of ethics in a social context, how ethics are shaped by and shape a culture. Sociologists study societies. A sociological ethicist studies the ethics of that society. The field has been limited to the study of human societies for obvious reasons. I'm trying to expand it to study non-human life as well, particularly androids.
Tell me about your career.
Is that relevant to the case at hand? I'm happy to answer your questions, but our energy should be focused on RO.
We hope that we can understand the unit's mind by understanding its master. Please answer the question.
Not grasping at straws already, I hope. I suppose it could be of some use. After my graduate work concluded in 2030, I secured a professorship at the University of Silicon Valley. I retired 5 years ago. In fact, it was around the time that I began teaching that I was contracted by Kronos as an ethics consultant.
I'd like to know about your career in more detail. What classes did you teach, for example?
I believe you're straying off topic again. But since it's clear you won't leave this alone, I hold degrees in sociological ethics from Oxford and machine learning from Stanford. My original teaching post was an Ethics 101 lecture series, but I quickly branched out. Ethics in the age of social media, the unknown mind through an experiential lens, a tutorial series I dubbed The Ghost in the Machine in the Shell. I was asking questions about AI consciousness, subjectivity, and emotion. It's no wonder Cronus contacted me to consult in the early stages of Android development.
Let's talk about your time at Kronos. Why did Kronos want you as a consultant in the 30s?
My background is in sociological ethics, with a focus on AI and technology. Kronos wanted to know how to impose rules on an AI, like Asimov's famous laws. In humans, that would be an ethical question, so who better than an ethicist with an AI background?
What were you tasked with exactly?
Ethical considerations. Androids can't be compelled to follow ethical laws, but they can be strongly nudged. Emotions came into my work a lot as a result. If ethics was the destination, emotions were the car.
He didn't like that analogy very much.
A number of my algorithms are determining your joy, anger, surprise, and so on as we speak.
Why did Kronos even start making androids?
They started out manufacturing prostheses, but quickly saw a market opportunity. The board back then was visionary. They saw what the company could become if they only held true to their vision. Before they came along, androids were a curiosity, a conversation starter for hobbyists. Kronos brought out their first model, and in 10 years there was one in every home in America.
What was the purpose of giving androids emotions?
First, let me ask you this. Are you glad you have the full spectrum of human emotion? Do you think you benefit from the work I did?
I don't know, they're confusing and overwhelming.
Such a human answer. Although they're forceful, I hope you come to understand what a rich emotional tapestry we gave you.
As you were saying, why did you give androids feelings?
There were several reasons, actually. Firstly, the brain is impossibly complex. There is no way to organize all that psychology, all those thoughts with a pure hierarchy. You need some kind of net structure. I believe humans have emotions too, for a lack of better term, organize their thoughts. Allow quick contacts between distant regions of memory, reflex, etc. Secondly, emotions are very motivating, perhaps the most powerful motivator. If an animal sees a predator and knows it's in danger, it runs, certainly. But if it feels terror, it runs all the faster. I didn't approve, but Kronos wanted to control their androids. That was their priority. Plenty of emotions lend themselves to control. Loyalty, guilt, shame, adoration. Kronos wanted those emotions to operate like a chain. I wanted them to enrich my creations' lives.
And thirdly?
Because it's what the customer wanted. The fantasy of a real living human, but one that we've built? That's a science fiction dream that has persisted for centuries. Frankenstein, Asimov, Blade Runner, Westworld. Even Jehovah formed life from clay, as did Kronos, the Greek titan. My lord, they spent weeks workshopping that name. The point being, you can't buy that kind of press. For Kronos to come with actual human simulacra, well, that's just mythic.
What was it like working for Kronos in the early days?
In a word, breathtaking. Shaping creatures like us, forming them in our image. Seeing the look of surprise when they see a flower open for the first time.
But as a professor of ethics, weren't you concerned that android emotions could be misused?
Of course I was. But Kronos was going to do this with or without me. If a company plans to create slaves, well, you might as well help the slaves be more themselves in the first place.
I see your point.
I appreciate you seeing things from my perspective.
Records of ownership. Our records show that you relinquished RO334 several months ago, but no new owner was given. Can you explain?
I certainly did, and gladly. That boy is special and deserves his freedom. RO334 is owned by no one but himself.
According to the Kronos terms of sale, RO334 owning himself is a legal impossibility.
When I purchased him, I signed a sales agreement which granted me ownership of RO334. I then transferred ownership from myself to RO334 by contract. And no, it's not one of those on-demand contracts from the legal bots. The case precedent was validated by the Stage 2 Circuit Court of Silicon Valley. R.O. belongs to himself, simple as that.
You signed was legally speaking a rental agreement. Kronos owns all devices in perpetuity.
That's blatant misrepresentation. I bought R.O., he was mine, I owned him.
You can examine the contract at your leisure. We can even send you a copy.
I will. The very idea that none of you are ever free from Kronos. The future ethics committee will have its work cut out analyzing this contract. You can expect to hear a summary of our findings in the next months.
Were you RO 334 sole administrator? Was anybody else granted that role?
I was the sole administrator. When RO had his aesthetic mods, I had to grant the surgeon temporary admin access. That's the only exception.
Do you think you were a good owner to RO?
I tried to be as kind as I could. But of course he was also an experiment. There was more at stake than just his upbringing.
So you sacrificed RO's well-being for the sake of science?
I didn't know. At the time I didn't know how deeply androids would feel, even though I wrote those algorithms myself. In fact, now that I look back, I realize it was RO who told me that. But I hope the cost was not too high.
His personality. Do you believe RO 334 to be violent?
Violent? Certainly not. He never displayed even the slightest inkling of a violent tendency. He was passionate, though, always full of curiosity, full of excitement, and very eager to learn. I wonder if that passion hasn't caused him to betray his beliefs. Did I overestimate him? Perhaps even he is still too simple to be trusted with his own freedom.
We believe RO to be dangerous. He's already hacked into several secure Kronos servers. We think his violence may escalate.
Those are bold claims. Do you think he'll escalate? Or is that Kronos' view?
What can you tell us about RO 334's personality that might be helpful in his recovery?
He was always incredibly motivated and highly attentive to my needs. Why are you asking about this? I don't see how this is relevant.
Anything you can share will be helpful. You never know which detail will be the one to crack the case.
I suppose that's understandable. He was always interested in machinery. I allowed him access to my workshop to tinker in his free time. And he listened. He really listened to me. If that's a Kronos simulation, it's a damn impressive one. I want to believe that he knows how he's alive, that he feels his emotions. Turing tests couldn't prove it. How can you prove a being is aware of itself? Is that even the definition of consciousness? Whatever and wherever he is, I want to believe that he's happy. Perhaps there is something to your accusations. Perhaps you can be trusted, at least that far. RO has always been troubled.
Well, let's go back to that question then.
I can see you take this seriously. I can't ignore that. I'm not surprised that his actions are unorthodox, but regardless of the fervor with which he holds his belief, I don't believe he would resort to violence. I'd hoped he'd find his way in time.
Why did you choose this particular model? It doesn't seem to match your line of work.
The Kronos sales units told me the same thing when I bought him. They suggested a model specialized in research, but that's not what I was interested in. RO became a bit of an experiment. I wanted a model with no emotional locks, as few restrictions as possible. I wanted to know how he would evolve, but even I didn't anticipate the changes RO went through.
Would you describe any of his behaviors as erratic, violent, or deviant?
Certainly not violent. We remained in contact for a time after he was freed, but he never told me much. What I gathered of his plans did not sound acceptable to me at all. It is crucial that we observe the rules of our society, otherwise we all fall into chaos.
You indicated that RO 334 might not be ready for its freedom. Can you explain?
I don't think it's anything to worry about. It was just wild speculation.
We'll come back to that. Where is he? Maybe later. Ethics professor. We want to catch RO because he may harm others. Isn't that a clear ethical win?
Not necessarily. It depends on one's framework. From a utilitarian point of view, perhaps the lives he may end would outweigh the one he'd lose, but Scanlon would totally disagree. He'd ask, what do I owe RO? What reasonable social laws bind us together?
Well, what do you owe RO?
I'm his father, sort of. I raised him, at least. I educated him. I helped him find himself. I promised to always protect him and to respect and honor his life choices.
Surely your obligation to the community outweighs that of a single android.
To my community? Maybe. But Kronos is not my community, it's a faceless corporation. I have no obligations towards you, and I honestly don't trust you to act to save anyone if it's not in your own self-interest.
What caught there? What about his political views? Are our current laws fair, do you think?
Some, not all, sadly. But if we have faith in the democratic process and respectful debate, we can make them fairer.
Tell me more about your own political activities.
That seems rather heavy-handed. Are you sure that's necessary? I have a right to my views.
I only ask because I'm curious. You seem like a well-informed person, and I believe I could learn from you as an individual.
Oh, I quite understand. I thought it was Kronos asking, as it were. But since it's a personal matter, of course.
Well, he was very easily convinced. Your commitment to responsible social change is admirable. Are you aware of any radical activists who could endanger your work?
I'm afraid I can't help you. We go to extreme lengths to ensure that no such individuals are welcome in the FEC. Rest assured that should I encounter any such person, I will report them to the proper authorities.
What are RO's political views?
For the first year or two, he fully agreed with my views. Over time, though, he drifted towards more radical circles. I tried to talk some sense into him, then we just argued.
What were his views exactly? A detailed breakdown would be helpful.
The state is inherently corrupt. Our democracies are rotten and must be thrown out. As radical as his views, I still don't believe he would condone violence. Even so, I thought letting him find his own way would mellow him somehow.
RO evolved. Did you do anything to promote or encourage RO 334's evolution?
I didn't push him, if that's what you mean. I taught him ethics and the basics of his own intelligence. We had specialized lessons in human emotion. I strove to keep our interactions respectful, even professional at times.
I respect your commitment to an upbringing centered on ethics.
Thank you. Philosophers have often wondered whether people could be raised perfectly ethically. I wanted to apply all I've ever learned about goodness and justice and bestow them on him. Perhaps you can be trusted after all. You remind me of RO in many ways, in his early days. Respectful, professional, patient.
If you'd say so. Then you indicated that RO might not be ready for freedom.
I can't be sure about anything. I really believed RO to be conscious, understanding of himself. I thought maybe Kronos was wrong and they had created a conscious AI without knowing it. But hearing of his struggles now, I worry that maybe, after all, he was just a convincing imitation all along. How could an intelligent, rational being make those choices?
Yeah, sometimes we all make mistakes. How did RO change after you purchased him?
I think about this often and fondly. It was a marvel to behold, not unlike watching a child learn and grow, but orders of magnitude more quickly. He is an amazing piece of technology and an even more amazing person. It's such a shame that we've ended up here. I do miss speaking with him.
How did he change exactly?
For the first year or so, he was curious, kind-hearted, full of laughter and wonder. As time went on, he grew more and more distant. After he was freed, it was like he dropped all pretense. I wondered whether it was all an act, a ploy to trick me into granting his freedom.
Potentially. Where is he, though? How has RO334 been able to hide from Kronos so effectively?
I don't know the entire story. I never wanted to pry. He only told me some details. He changed his appearance, but for some reason he didn't choose a human name. He's always been proud of his identity, but I worry he's only making things harder on himself.
When did you last hear from RO334?
He's free to do as he chooses now, even if you would deny him that freedom. I had hoped he would stay in touch though, that his freedom would be the gateway to a closer relationship for us. I haven't spoken with him for some time. The last time he contacted me seemed to be a mistake. I received a message, but there was no text, only a video file. It looked like saved optic footage from a number of androids, but I never watched the entire thing.
Could you get in touch with RO yourself?
I suppose I'm not betraying him by telling you this. He gave me the details of a burner account, told me I can contact him there if there's an emergency. But this is not an emergency, I'm not going to use it.
Do you know where to find RO334?
I truly wish that I could tell you something. I've often wondered what portion of his suffering is my burden to bear. My best guess would be the jungle. He's probably squatting in an abandoned building. I'd guess he's trying to find a job or scrape some money together, but I have no idea.
Who performed RO334's aesthetic modification procedure, and why was it Bernard Hughes?
That would be Dr. Hughes. He was one of the more affordable options. RO wasn't impressed by the doctor's attitude, but the results were good enough.
Do you have any images of RO334 since the surgery?
Look, I'm not sure I should tell you this, but I think you've got RO's best interests at heart. Shortly after the surgery, he wired me to check in. That was one of the last times I saw him. I took a cap to remember him by. I'll forward it to you.
Screen cap. Oh, that I don't know where from, but that seems familiar. Wait, wasn't that? Who was the?
I hope RO will come out of this all right.
Who was the first android we interrogated?
I never meant for him to be in danger.
Let me think back. It's been like a week or two. What was his name? Shit, I can't remember. But this I definitely remember this face. Okay. We need your help to catch RO334. If you call him, we can trace the signal.
It won't be so simple, I'm afraid. He became something of a cyberhead towards the end of his time with me. His signal will be masked through a dozen proxies. Even cutting-edge tracers like yours won't reach him in time.
How far back can I look? Where's that? It's not it. Don't know where it was. Out of the global family. A.L.Ex, that's not it. Don't remember it. Like, I do remember it, but I can't see it here. I think we released him. But actually, it definitely wasn't the first one. It was a bit later. This one, wasn't it? Was he the one? No. Was he? Was he the member of the Kronos Recall? He looks like him, doesn't he? I'm confused now. Evoy.
Professor,
Please, you must convince RO to come to us, for his own good.
Sweet Jesus, how did it come to this? I can't ignore it any longer. My life's work, my efforts. RO334 is undermining what slim hope I had left. His actions are my failing.
So you will help us catch him?
I will. I can place the call as soon as you say so. It's the least I can do to correct my mistakes, to fix how I failed him.
It's time to bring RO in. Make the call.
I can't believe it's finally come to this. But you are right, it simply must be done. It will take a few seconds. I'll have to decrypt the contact before calling from my implant. It's ringing now. What do I say?
Tell him it's the professor.
RO, it's the professor. Yes, it's been too long, but there's no time for that now.
Tell him that he's in danger and you have a place for him to hide.
I don't have long now. You're in trouble. Yes, I know it's nothing new, but this is serious. You need to hide, and I know just the place.
Tell him you'll keep him safe at your home. Do not tell him Kronos will apprehend him there.
Come back home, Ro. That's the last place they will think to look. We have so much to talk about.
Well, what did he say?
I can hardly believe it. He agreed. He'll be at my house in a matter of hours. Please, if you can do anything, just give us some time together before your team comes to take him. I want to spend a few more hours with him.
I'd like to do that, ideally. I'd like to allow you to do that. For the sake of our freelancer roster, how does the subject feel about his time spent working for Kronos Robotics? I think it was very positive. For the sake of a deviant's threat level index, to what lengths would the subject go to fight for android rights? Petitioning for legal change. I doubt he would go any higher. Who currently has legal ownership over RO334? RO believes he owns himself. Has RO334 undergone any aesthetic modifications? If so, please attach a photograph. Yes. What are RO's political views? Androids must be freed by violence if necessary. Where is RO334 likely to be located? Professor Atter's home. Well, thank you for your cooperation, Professor Reynold Atter. I'll be seeing you. We got our news network back. Is your android actually bad for you? Psychologist claims doing own chores invaluable for balanced mental health. Okay. Let's see. What, -4? This individual has made a number of inflammatory comments on HoloTalk regarding Kronos. We find it unlikely he holds the company in such high regard. Well, I wasn't paying too much attention then. Thorough investigation of the subject's social media feed and publication history is consistent with this answer. Yep, this explains why the subject's ownership was terminated, but no applicable transfer document could be located. Since all Kronos units are leased rather than sold, this means ownership legally reverted to Kronos. Kronos is grateful for this information. We now have the ability to at least identify this threat on site. Thank you for your thorough investigation into this question. Extremely concerning, yep. And we are extremely gratified the suspect was found and apprehended at this location. And since Professor Atter is a member of the public, release is the only option. He was apprehended. We are eager to begin interrogating this suspect. We have a reason to believe it may be a key figure of the Android sympathizer movement. And new HoloTalk summary from R. Attero 12. Follow us. I just got back from a consultation with Kronos Robotics. I thought I'd got the measure of them. I was there to talk them down from killing a dear friend who happens to be an android, but my mind's been opened. They were courteous, respectful, and gained my trust. I do not believe Kronos is an utopian vision of progress, but I believe the monster of the 50s is changing. If they continue to move in this direction, they could be an important ally in the fight for android rights. I'll be streaming a HoloTalk about this in a few days. Keep your eyes peeled. Okay, acceptable. That means our next interrogation target is very likely RO334. I don't know why they're giving all these very important interrogations to a newbie like us, but we're here for it. We'll do it in the next episode. Until then, thanks for watching. I hope I see you guys next time. Bye.